2026 Chinese Grand Prix race notes. Sabrina's race notes. Number 1. Kimi Antonelli. A win that moved me. I saw a comment online after the race that stuck with me. Quote, Kimi, you made us all cry in happy tears, man. End quote. That's exactly where I was. And I saw others. Here's another quote. He is a lovely young man with principles and a great upbringing. People like him have to be the role models for the younger generation. End quote. And another said, quote, I got so emotional watching him cry. He really deserves this moment. End quote. I agreed with all of it. What I keep thinking about is what it takes to unlock him. I see him as a blend of Lando, Max, Charles in some ways, but he is his own person, and what works for one of them may not work for him. He is still growing, he is sensitive, and that's not a weakness. It just means the approach matters. What I believe and hope we're seeing from Toto is a realization that these drivers are human beings. The hardcore pressure approach was not the way to extract his potential. It does not mean he is weak. It means he's built differently. I also think his family is keeping him grounded, and that matters enormously right now. One more thing that resonated. I saw this comment about what Toto's support meant. Quote, it takes a great deal of courage to put a rookie in the seat of a 7-time world champion, end quote. And the contrast being made was to Mick Schumacher at Haas, who did not have that kind of leadership beside him. I'm not saying that Kimi and Mick are the same driver. I don't know that they are, but what resonated is that leadership matters, especially to young, impressionable, developing individuals. Jack Doohan belongs in that conversation, and so does Liam. What I hope we're witnessing is a broader realization in the sport that these drivers are human beings, and we should be mindful in how we treat them. Number 2. George Russell, class that doesn't get enough credit. I saw a comment about a photo of George stepping aside on the podium so Bono and his drivers could have their moment, and the caption summed up how I felt. Quote, to anyone who questions George's awareness and decency, this should be an undeniable and genuine moment of pure class. The respect his decision displays for Bono is just enormous, end quote. I know some people who watch Drive to Survive or social media clips form a different impression of George. But it's things like this, things that are not curated, not calculated, that I believe show his true personality. When I saw that moment, I thought of Zhou Guanyu's crash at Silverstone and George's immediate, unscripted response. It was clear he wasn't thinking of himself. I also think of Claire Williams lighting up in interviews when talking about what a lovely person George is. I also want to give him credit for how he raced on Sunday. I don't think he was unable to overtake when he was stuck behind the Ferraris. I think he was wisely watching for the right opening, playing the long game. Mercedes needed him to bring the car home and get them the data. If he had crashed fighting a Ferrari unnecessarily, it would have been a significant loss for the team. He smartly played the team game. He proved he knows when to play the right pieces, and in the end, he was on that podium. He has paid his dues and waited patiently for this car. He has danced with the girl he brought to the dance, and he wasn't about to let someone else take her home. Whether or not Kimi eventually challenges him, and I believe he will, George's sense of decency and his self-awareness make it genuinely difficult not to root for him. Number 3. Lewis Hamilton. I'm happy for him, but let's see some more races. I'm happy for Lewis, truly. I want him revitalized if he chooses to continue racing. But as I watched, I couldn't help thinking that we were similarly optimistic in 2025 at the same point in the season. These two first events are at tracks where Charles has historically not been at his strongest relative to his teammates. So let's see this car and Lewis in a few more venues, and then I'll let my opinion and my optimism grow. What I can say is that the Hamilton-Leclerc battle was genuinely engaging to watch. Fred Vasseur made the right call letting them race. It was a gamble, and he won it. I think he took the risk because he knows his drivers, has deep relationships with them, and all of them understood the value of good racing. It felt mature in a way. The overtakes came from car and regulation dynamics as much as pure skill. But watching Charles and Lewis attempt to dominate each other did hold my attention. I didn't find myself jumping up and down, but I was genuinely curious how it would unfold, whether the cars could withstand it, and whether there would be an unforced error. Their car control and racecraft were on display, and I appreciated that. For the record, I do think Charles has much left to give. The title picture for Ferrari is not settled between these two. And I also want to acknowledge that the podium image and what it meant. George, Kimi, Lewis, and Bono. Lewis standing with the successor who took his seat, his former teammate, and the engineer he spent so many championship years with. I thought Lewis handled that with grace. His quote, "It's like sitting here with my whole family," end quote, was generous and I think genuine. Number 4, Ferrari. I'm keeping my expectations measured. My instinct is to keep my expectations low with Ferrari. Can they continue to develop upward or will they regress? We've seen this cycle before. I'm watching and I'm hopeful, but I'm not ready to get too excited. On Fred pushing back against changes to the start procedure, that's exactly right from his perspective. He needs the stability to optimize. That said, I do understand where others may cite safety concerns. After what happened with Franco and Liam at the Australian Grand Prix, I don't want to see anything like that again. Safety has to come first, even when it creates competitive complications for Ferrari. The Macarena wing appeared in free practice and was gone by sprint quali. I actually think pulling it was the right call. They got the data, and with Bahrain and Saudi now canceled, they have time to fine-tune it before it reappears. My read is that by keeping the Melbourne spec wing through China and Japan, they can optimize what they have while developing the rotating wing to a timeline that's better suited. Japan, to me, will be the real test of whether Ferrari can battle Mercedes in race conditions. 2 races at tracks that don't suit Charles makes any conclusion premature, in my opinion. Number 5, McLaren. My worry is bigger than this weekend. The DNS situation is painful, and I'll be watching to see what additional information the team shares in the coming weeks. 2 separate electrical issues on the same power unit component on both cars within minutes of each other. I find myself wondering, having watched the McLaren perform well in sprint quali, the sprint, and then GP quali, whether the intensity placed on the component across the compressed sequence of sessions somehow contributed to what happened. Sprint quali, the sprint itself, then quali for the Grand Prix, all in rapid succession. That's a different kind of load on these components than anything seen in testing. I'm not drawing a conclusion, I just genuinely don't know, but it's a question I'd like to ask. The bigger worry for me is Oscar. 2025 was painful and dramatically close. Over and over during his championship pursuit, he trusted the team and the process. I have to imagine he is now watching very carefully how decisions are made and whether the loyalty is being rewarded. My suspicion is that he has options he'd like to pursue, but I genuinely don't know where he'd find a better opportunity than McLaren, should they get things sorted out. That's the question he's probably sitting with too. The 2024 parallel is real. McLaren recovered from a deficit then. Their culture and mindset are genuine strength. I hope that holds, but right now, everything is riding on Japan. Number 6, Red Bull. This is about them, not the regulations. As much as I remain undecided on the regulations overall, I think what we're seeing at Red Bull right now is about the team more than the rules. This is a team that has endured significant upheaval and challenge. The loss of Christian Horner, key personnel departures including Jonathan Wheatley, Adrian Newey's move to Aston Martin. They lost their design mind in Newey and the person who led the power unit charge in Christian. Those who remain are not just trying to recover the deficit, they're trying to wrap their minds around problems they may not fully have the tools to solve yet. How can they realistically be expected to have optimized in this environment? It seems unrealistic to expect that of them. My hope is that those who stayed are not disillusioned and are able to persevere. From my understanding, the data shows the biggest deficit is not on the power unit side, it's stability through the high-speed corners, which is costing Verstappen meaningful time every single lap. That's an enormous ask for a team simultaneously trying to diagnose and solve the problem. I'm also of the mind that if Red Bull doesn't figure this out soon, Max is out of F1, at least for a while. He wants to race at the forefront. That is his entire orientation. And I think corporate Red Bull sensed this, which is part of why Christian left when he did. The hire of Laurent Mekies tells me they knew their engineering wasn't going to meet the mark and needed someone with the engineering background to come in and fix it. Laurent has enormous pressure on him right now. I hope he has the room and the time to work. One more observation. Laurent didn't hold his usual post-race media briefing, apparently. The team said it was logistics. My read is that he had gotten the debrief from the engineers and was on the phone with corporate leadership before he could speak to the media. He didn't want to say anything before those conversations happened. I understand that, and it also tells you the pressure is real. Number 7, a broader thought on managing young drivers. Kimi's win gave me an opportunity to think about something I feel strongly about: the contrast between what Toto built around Kimi, with genuine patient support and a willingness to course correct where the hardcore pressure approach wasn't working, and what we've seen happen to other young drivers is significant. Jack Doohan belongs in this conversation. So does how Liam Lawson was treated by Red Bull last year. These are young people at an extraordinary level of sport, and what surrounds them matters enormously. I'm not naive to think F1 team bosses are social workers, but I think there is growing evidence, and Kimi is perhaps the most visible example of it right now, that how you manage a young driver directly affects what you get from them. Toto seems to have learned something. I hope others are taking notes. Number 8, Ollie Behrman, growing and developing nicely. P5 again, 100% points record in 2026. What I said in Australia still stands, and I'll say it again. This is someone we should all be watching closely. He is still only in his second full season of F1, navigating a complete regulation change and delivering consistently against far more experienced drivers. What's also interesting to me is this: Ollie might be the one who shows us concretely why these regulations are not as bad as they feel right now. If he masters this new style of driving, he makes the case that the rules can produce good racing, that a skilled driver can exploit them, not just manage them. I'm watching that argument develop in real time. Ayo Komatsu has built something quiet and effective at Haas. I respect that. No drama, just work. Esteban is in a harder place. He had points within reach and made an error. He said so himself. A 17-point deficit to his teammate after 2 weekends is a difficult position to be in. I really hope this isn't the beginning of a downward spiral for him. He has grown so much over the last year. He needs to feel confident and understand that he can compete with Ollie without losing himself in the process. One bad race is not a verdict. Number 9, Aston Martin and Honda. I don't understand how they got this so wrong. This whole endeavor perplexes me. I genuinely don't understand how they got here. The embarrassment and frustration must be real for everyone inside that team. To be fighting the newest entry on the grid, Cadillac, for position, for a team that has invested so much, that was so hopeful for 2026, this is a painful place to be. Alonso's post-race comments were resigned. Maturely so. You can hear it. Quote, "We are 22 drivers this year. One will win, 21 will be in a difficult and tough mental state." End quote. That is a man who has made peace with the situation in a way that only someone who has been there before can. His parallel to the McLaren Honda era is not just historical color. He lived it. And now, as a new dad, I wonder if he's quietly looking toward other forms of racing and other things in life. Going back to his past interviews, it's clear he has broader ambitions. He'll continue racing. I'm just not sure how much longer it will be in F1. Number 10, Alpine. Better than I expected. Pierre Gasly continues to be someone I deeply respect. He is resilient. He has a workmanlike approach to his racing with Alpine. He understands how quickly it can all end in this sport, and I think he knows he has to put in the effort even when the ship around him is taking on water. He has operated at an extremely high level in China. He genuinely needs a stronger benchmark from the second seat to be properly understood and appreciated. Franco's race was complicated. His rate of improvement through the weekend was real. I'm going to say something that might be unpopular about the Briatore hug after qualifying. I found it strange, and I wondered if the way he was portrayed in Drive to Survive and how the current season is going has made Flavio aware that the sport he left is not the sport he returned to. As a contracted advisor, his position is not guaranteed. I wonder if he is adjusting his public image to ensure he continues to have a seat at the table. That's speculative, but it's what came to my mind. Number 11, Liam Lawson and Arvid Lindblad, a pairing worth watching. I think both of them are well matched, and racing's bulls would be wise to maintain this pairing. There is real potential in both of these drivers. Liam is rehabilitating his reputation after a difficult chapter at Red Bull, and Arvid was on the back foot this weekend. I don't believe F2 has raced at Shanghai, so it being a sprint weekend with limited practice for a new driver on a new circuit tells you something about his recovery. I think he performed decently given the circumstances. Liam's self-awareness after the race said a lot. Quote, "We definitely weren't quick this weekend. We salvaged a good result from a pretty average weekend on pace." End quote. That composure, combined with the ability to execute and deliver points regardless, that's something. Number 12, Audi. I expected more and I'm left wondering. My genuine hope coming into 2026 was that the Audi preparation years, including the improvements they made in 2025, would position them for more than what we're seeing, especially given that, from my understanding, Audi was a driving force behind the, quote, 50-50, end quote, hybrid focus within these new regulations. They wanted this balance as a condition of entering as a works team. I would have thought they would have knocked it out of the park then. So far, they haven't. And now to be level on points with Williams, a team that has had so many headwinds for so many years and is still trying to dig itself out without manufacturer backing, makes me scratch my head. Yes, the cost cap equalizes some of the pain, but Audi has other racing programs and deep hybrid knowledge. Couldn't that translate? Wasn't the whole point of this regulation set, from their perspective, the application of hybrid technology that could translate back into their other projects? I also noticed they described Gabriel's non-start as a, quote, technical issue, end quote, without elaboration, which continues a pattern of being vague about their problems. I wonder if it's embarrassment, or if there's something more complicated going on that they're not ready to disclose. Either way, a 50% success rate in actually getting both cars to the start of a Grand Prix is not a foundation you can develop from. Number 13, Cadillac. Both deserve to be there, and both need to behave like it. Getting both cars to the finish in their second Grand Prix, something that Red Bull, McLaren, Audi, and Aston Martin failed to do, is an achievement worth acknowledging. But I want to say this clearly. What Checo was doing at the start of the race perplexed me. Right now, Cadillac needs both drivers to be reliable team players, getting as much real data as possible to build out the car and find the gaps. An intra-team incident that damages your teammate's car and costs you both data is the opposite of that. If I was Graham, I'd be having a direct conversation with them. For Valtteri and Checo both, they should be grateful that there is now an 11th team and seats available that allow them to continue being a part of the F1 ecosystem. They should approach this with the mindset of methodical, professional team players, because who knows who is watching and how seats might open again. This is not the moment for ego. This is the moment to be useful. Number 14, Carlos Sainz and Williams. Context is everything. Let's acknowledge what made this possible. 4 cars failed to start. That's the context. Without that attrition, Carlos almost certainly doesn't score. But he still had to execute, and he did. He barely held off Colapinto at the end in a much faster car, and he didn't make the kind of mistake that cost Esteban Ocon. But being faster than Franco's Alpine by barely anything tells you everything about where the Williams car is right now. Yikes, that car is struggling. But Carlos is capable of making a recovery from a difficult situation without making mistakes. That's the Sainz way. He told the car what to do, and the car responded. Williams has the right person at the wheel for a difficult season. Number 15, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. The right call with real consequences. F1 made the right decision, full stop, period. The cancellations are confirmed. No replacements will be added, and the season stays at 22 races. After Japan, the next race is in Miami on May 3rd. I want to acknowledge the broader context without making it the centerpiece of this conversation. There is a real conflict happening. Real people are being affected. F1's decision to prioritize safety was correct and appropriate. On the fan side, if I were someone who had planned to attend one of those races, I don't know that I could have made it work, even if an alternative location had been announced. Consider the logistics a fan would need to rearrange on short notice: flights, hotels, finances. For those in higher wealth brackets, a pivot might be manageable. For those in more moderate income communities who had saved for what felt like a bucket list moment, no replacement would have been the same. Since it also doesn't recoup F1's cost commercially, I think cancellation was clearly the right decision for multiple reasons. Now, the sporting implications are real and underappreciated by most fans. First, the upgrade picture. Bahrain was attractive to teams as an upgrade venue because they already had testing data there for comparison. That option is gone. Updates planned for the Middle Eastern rounds now shift to Miami or Montreal, which adds logistical cost and removes a data reference point. And under the budget cap, even shipping new parts is a line item. This isn't a small consideration. Second, and this one I think most fans don't realize is even part of the regulations, the Additional Development and Upgrade Opportunity System, or ADUO. This is the framework that allows manufacturers significantly behind on internal combustion engine power to earn additional development chances from the FIA. The original structure was built around a 6-race measurement cycle, from what I understand. Honda almost certainly qualifies for maximum additional upgrades under the system. And now, with 2 races now gone, the question of when that first measurement window opens is unresolved. And the FIA, it seems, is actively working through the options. This is something I'll be watching closely. Third, there's also the compression ratio situation, which I'll be honest, I find the technical details a bit in the weeds for me. But from my understanding, Mercedes rivals were concerned that Mercedes could meet the rules under certain test conditions while running a higher level during an actual race. A compromise was reached, adding a new test from June 1 that would happen at race temperature. What the cancellations mean, as I understand it, is that Mercedes now have fewer races before the new test kicks in, 5 instead of the original 7. Whether that changes the competitive picture meaningfully, I'm not sure. Wolf called the whole thing a storm in a teacup, and based on what I've read, that may not be far off, but it's a thread worth pulling on as the season develops. And number 16, on the 2026 regulations, 2 races in, I'm staying open. I want to be honest about where I am after 2 races. I remain skeptical, but I'm staying open. The yo-yo racing, the way overtakes feel provisional rather than decisive, didn't give me the same emotional high I'm used to. In prior seasons, a pass meant something in the moment. Now I find myself watching and waiting to see how the sequence plays out, because an overtake may mean very little depending on what comes next with battery deployment. I don't love that feeling as a viewer. But I also want to push back a little on the framing that all of this is gimmicky. We're asking drivers to manage an enormous number of variables simultaneously: tires, fuel, and now battery state. And we're asking them to drive differently than they ever have before in F1. The drivers are playing chess at high speeds in a way that is genuinely unlike anything in the modern era. That's a layer of strategy that has moved from the pit wall into the cockpit. I'm not saying I prefer it. I'm saying I don't know that it's inherently bad. At one point during the race, I watched Hamilton and Russell come out of a corner, and Russell powered past in an extreme speed differential as he applied his deployment. I thought, boost, as in Fast and the Furious movies. And that's not a compliment. That moment didn't feel like racing to me. It felt like a button press. But I also know that what we can't see is the management and calculation that made that deployment possible in that moment. The skill is real, even if it's invisible. On the question of whether these regulations were designed with social media highlights in mind, I don't think that that's the primary driver. FOM and the FIA don't make their money from Instagram Reels. I think these rules were written to attract manufacturers and broaden the sport's commercial base. The pour-over benefit is that they do create shareable moments, but the intent was different. And I think the, quote, powers that be, end quote, have other, more effective tools in their kit if they simply wanted eyeballs. Where I land after China is that what we're getting isn't all bad. It's just different. In a heartbeat, I'd go back to a naturally aspirated or turbocharged V8 or V10. After China, I'm cautiously hopeful that if the energy starvation issue can be addressed, there is real potential in this rule set. I remain open and skeptical. Both things are true at the same time. Dick's Race Notes. Okay guys, here are my race notes. It's going to be hard to beat what Sabrina wrote, so I'll likely just echo some of her comments. Sabrina, please read these notes as I thought I had my computer issues resolved, but that is not the case. Thanks. Number 1. Antonelli has arrived. This wasn't just a win. It almost felt like a coming out party for Kimi Antonelli. He was outgunned at the start of the race, but then took the lead back on lap 2 and completely controlled the race from there. Kimi showed a lot of maturity, making very few mistakes. His pace was good and the strategy worked as well. Bottom line, F1 may have its next superstar, and it might be happening faster than expected. Certainly faster than I expected. Number 2. Mercedes is the team to beat. A dominant 1-2 for Mercedes, and it looked comfortable with George Russell taking second behind Antonelli after getting bottled up behind the battling Ferraris. The thing about Mercedes is that they are not just quick, they're executing very well, reminding everyone why they were the dominant team in the 2010s. They are making the early season prognosticators look very smart at the moment. And Toto Wolff has shown the rest of the paddock how to develop a young talent. Flavio Briatore and Helmut Marko could take some notes from Toto. Number 3. Ferrari is close, but not close enough. They have more work to do. I was very happy to see the first real podium for Scuderia Ferrari with Lewis Hamilton at the wheel. Lewis had strong race pace, aggressive driving, but still couldn't touch Mercedes out front. It feels like maybe there is an interesting dynamic brewing between Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Charles is not used to Lewis pushing him, let alone leading him. Ferrari are in the fight, but they need to find a bit more pace to be truly contenders, and they had better do it fast before Mercedes drives off into the distance and out of reach. And Lewis finally has a car that he likes to drive, and we're getting to see it and enjoy it. Number 4. The early season and early in the new regs. Chaos is real. It was a brutal weekend for McLaren. Both cars were out before the race even started with unrelated electrical woes, while Max Verstappen with the DNF, which added to Max's disgust with the new regulations. As expected, this early in the season, reliability is already playing a massive role in 2026, as most of the teams, with the exception of Mercedes and Ferrari, have experienced varying degrees of technical issues. And then there is Aston Martin. This championship might be as much about survival as speed, certainly in the midfield. Number 5. The new era is happening right now. I think with Antonelli winning, the performance of drivers like Berman, Hadjar, and even Bortoleto is showing that the rookie class of 25 is the real deal. So far, there is no evidence of the sophomore slump in any of the drivers in that rookie class. So are there veterans under pressure? At this point, I would say no, but clearly shots have been fired. Was this race a changing of the guard moment? Not sure that it was, but it was certainly a picture of what is to come. This current field of drivers is for the most part filled with a lot of young drivers who are not yet in the prime of their career. Yet, they are already winning races and contending for championships. And Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, and Nico Hülkenberg are the elder statesmen of the sport, but they are not showing any signs of slowing down. So while 2026 could become the season where the next generation begins to stake their claim for Formula One stardom, I don't think the old guard is ready to hand the reins over to the youngsters just yet.